to begin our budget development meeting. Thank you all for being here. Ruth, let's have a roll call, please.
Adamson?
Here.
Ray?
Here.
Cheatham?
Here.
Lura?
Here.
Johnston?
Here.
Manon?
Here.
Thank you very much. Our fiscal year 2020 budget development items are before us. Joyce Stroshine, our Chief Financial Officer, and others will make presentations today. Joyce, we'll turn the time to you, please.
Okay, thank you, Councilman Jim. Okay, so today we're going to be looking for direction on two items for our budget build. Interfund fuel rates and the experience rating for work comp rates. So let me go into that a little more deeply. Okay, so in fiscal year 19, we were charging, we decided to go with $3 per gallon for diesel and $3.10 per gallon for unleaded. And if you remember at the tail end of our sessions, we decided to up it by the 30 cents. So those are included in those amounts, that rate increase that we did at the end. Now, the calculated, and that's taking a look between March 1st through February 28th, actual what did we pay and what was the usage? The rates that are coming out in that calculation are $3.20 for diesel and $3.40 for unleaded. Now, I might call Tom up here so he can give us a little insight, because I think he might have some comments on what we've calculated out and what we might need to be doing. And so it'll give you options as to what you want to choose.
Thanks.
Tom
Kirkman, Deputy Public Works Director. So we ran a calculation of FY19 from March to March, like Joyce was saying, of the actuals of what the prices have been, the average. We were averaging about $2.80 for unleaded and $2.62 for diesel. So we were pretty close last year of where we were thinking we were going to go minus the 30. So we had a good year. But like Joyce says, that we're projecting next year's off of what we did last year plus the 30 cents. So we've been looking at the U.S. Energy Information Administration, and it's just kind of all over the place. I wish I had a crystal ball to show you.
I think we better plan for the higher rates.
Yeah, I think it's always better to overestimate.
Well, you can get through if you at least have enough to cover, or if you had to make an adjustment and add more. It's a lot easier if you've already budgeted for a good representation so that you don't have to worry about being short.
Everything that's happening in South America and other places where we have previously been dependent on petroleum products, very unpredictable. So
I did a little research too, and May is expected to be a monster peak this year, and then it's expected to decline. But they're talking about a serious increase in fuel prices in May.
I think we better go for higher.
So you want us to go with fiscal year 2020 rates of
Yes.
$3.20 and then $3.40?
I would recommend that. What do you think, Roger?
I got a question. Why is our unleaded higher than diesel?
We don't have to pay the on-road tax for diesel. By state law, we get to buy off-road diesel, so it's like 25 cents a gallon right off the top.
Okay. It's still 60 or 70 cents difference at the pump.
Yeah.
60 cents.
We just bought on the 7th, we did our bulk purchase, and it was $2.14 for unleaded and $1.98 for diesel. So.
Interesting.
And then we added an administrative fee to that for the departments. But
Pardon?
Tells you what the markup is on
Yeah.
this.
What other guidance would you like?
I think that's it.
On this, just how should we build it for the departments that use fuel as a fuel site so that we can get the right amount in there? And that gives you a better picture when you see their budget presentation as to what we are expecting.
Anyone object to going ahead in that direction?
So we're good with the
Okay.
2020 rates?
Yep.
Okay. That's all we need there. Thank you, Tom. Okay. Next one is the work comp experience rating. If you remember, we have been trying to get the experience rating back up to 100%.
Correct.
Okay. Right now, we're sitting at 70%. We made a big climb last year because we were at, let's see here. Someone got that for me. 64, and then we moved up to 70, which was good. And so right now I'm recommending at least a 10% move on the experience rating, get us to 80%. And you see what the cost citywide is on our current salary projection, meaning with the 2.5% rate increase and with step moves. Now, what we won't have factored in here yet, of course, is anything that may go down with CBAs this year, collective bargaining agreements. And that could make these numbers rise, okay? Because all this is a factor of how much do I pay you? And then what kind of job do you hold? You get a class code for that and a rate. The experience rating just says, whatever that rate is, I'm going to take 70% of that, and the system will make you pay for that, okay? If we move it up to 80, it's going to make it pay more, but it's a good thing because we really need to get back to the 100. We need to be at 103% reported to the Industrial Commission assessment by Morton and Company. So that's really where we're kind of heading goal-wise. But I think that 10% would definitely be manageable at this point. I mean, we can keep an eye on it and assess, but remember, this is how you fund that work comp fund for the things that you have to pay out on it. And so that's why it's important that we get that experience rating where we need it to be.
With the recent legislation, do we know how that's going to impact us? We can't really until we know what.
No, but could it? Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think we have to start preparing for that. I know that the information that Kirk has provided, he believes that we're going to have to start building to a cash balance of about $2 million, or a reserve balance of $2 million, because we have an excess rider policy, but it stops at 500,000. So anything above that is going to, or below that, is going to be on the city.
So what is our amount right now?
Okay, I knew you were going to ask that, so I just went through and looked at it. For the end of fiscal year 18, I see us at $1,351,149 in reserves.
And our current open claims have a reserve amount of about $250K. So you're really looking about 1.1 million is what's in there.
Yeah.
10 years ago, we asked to build the fund to 1.5. 10 years ago. We're not there yet. And we do have new legislation for both cancer and PTSD that are pretty big.
Now, if you remember in our session last week, and I told you about the excess reserves in the general fund, I had about 1.7 million. Remember, general fund can send money wherever it needs to. So if we wanted to do a budget amendment and send 500,000 to work comp, we can do that. And that would get you at least closer to the 1.5.
What would be the implications of moving to the state fund instead of privately funded?
Oh, well,
If we move to the state fund, we'll be paying 103%
Yeah.
automatically and have
Yeah.
no control over our
no.
claims.
And the thing is that you think that you're not going to save money. It's actually going to feel like you're pilfering out more. Yeah.
I'm not sure with the PTSI legislation that's true,
I know.
Joyce.
Well, I know, but I know what you're saying, and I am concerned about that myself. I don't know. I mean, I think last year, even with the cancer one, the cancer legislation, I think Heather was saying we should have an insurance for just that. You know, in other words, having a protection. And I don't know what happened, but we didn't go that route. We might need to be starting to think about things like that for these kind of issues, because that's basically what you're protecting yourself on when you go as the state insurance
So
company.
getting underwriting for what
Yeah.
we're doing?
It'll be expensive.
Yeah, it won't be cheap because of what it is.
The other thing we could look at is billing departments that have higher claims. And that's something we're currently looking at.
Yes.
So like
so-
sanitation, for example, last year, their claims were extremely high, higher than I've seen them in the last 10 years. They would take an average and look at that, and maybe they would pay a higher surcharge. So the
Yes.
departments that are safer pay less money, the ones that have a higher
and
incidence
how
pay
you
more.
would manage that through the system, because you have the class code that says you do this kind of a job, you're going to pay this rate, okay? And then we have, of course, the experience rating. But we could do something, we can't up the experience rating per department, because there's no way to do that on the system. But we could play with the work class codes and say, oh, your work class code should really be valued at X, so that we start pulling more money. And those departments pay for the issues that they're having.
Are we punishing departments by doing something like that? I mean,
Well, no, because what they need to be influencing is, hey, what is causing our problems and what is causing the accidents, and making sure, I mean, I know Ann does a great job of getting information to them about how to be safe and how, I mean, it becomes the manager's responsibility at that point, right?
but aren't certain departments, just by nature of the work they do, more dangerous?
Some are.
Yeah.
So
Some
it
are.
seems like they would bear the brunt of
We could
this.
also do there are other ways to do it. Let's say, for example, in sanitation, if we had a lot of back strains, we could do training on that, and it would be required if they all did the training and met our criteria, we could decrease that surcharge. So there's some avenues. I mean, none of our departments aren't telling us when we bring training, the answer is no. We
Yeah.
are training. There are jobs that are dangerous in some instances, but at the same time, there are claims that some departments can file that others cannot, that we have to differentiate as well, which we never had to do before. Everyone could come in and file a back claim. That's changed.
I have a couple comments. First of all, I think we did address the sanitation just a little bit today.
Yes.
By adding 2 people and taking workload off. I think that will make a difference.
Sure.
When I look at the 103%, I'd say just take 13% this year,
Okay.
go 10% the next couple of years.
Yeah.
Just,
And
you know, I
that's
mean,
fine.
or we could take 11% each of the years, and because we're down 33% right now.
Right.
So something like that just gets us on a 3-year plan. The other part of it would be, I think we ought to take a serious look at the end of the budget year, and if we have some reserve, we need to insure ourselves before we do some other things. So
Yeah.
I would look at that. So
Put that
that's
on our final list.
Yeah, I put it on our
Comes up.
final list,
Yeah.
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 But you know, just,
Well,
that's
no, I
something
agree.
important that we're self-insured, and we need to make sure that, in essence, we're insurance underwriters here.
Right.
We got to have a fiduciary responsibility to have that amount whole, and we do that on behalf of the
And-
Pocatello citizens.
And kind of to address what Linda was commenting on, if I have a department, well, like when you look at fire and ambulance, where their legislation puts us at higher risk, right? Now, why would I want to tap those departments? Well, I really want to tap ambulance if that's part of the issue, because ambulance is a contract. And so if we don't, because we can't make them pay, let's say we had a claim from an ambulance employee, we're gonna bear the brunt, not them, being the county. And so we need to start addressing those kind of issues, you know, making sure that we are addressing that or working it out with them so that we aren't the one bearing the full responsibility.
Well, I kind of feel like some of the stuff we're discussing should be addressed by the underwriters of workers' comp too. When they experience claim, they'll start rating some of these categories that the legislation applies to. They'll rank them higher
Well,
in terms
yes,
of what they
yes.
charge.
Where we
Absolutely.
really get the rate codes for each work class is from the Idaho Industrial Commission. And that's how we build from.
But they look at the claims that each class does.
Yes, they do.
So I think some of that will be addressed there.
Yeah.
If you see an increase in PTSD or cancer claims, the people directly in line with those positions will increase.
Right.
I agree with moving us in the right direction. Are you saying build it into budget, or are you saying use reserves?
I'm saying use 11% at least, or 13, and then you just kind of say next 2 years 10%.
But
From where?
See, I think we should use some
Right
of the
now,
reserves.
right now,
too.
and then use reserves
Yeah.
after we've got down the year farther,
Well,
because we don't know
Okay.
what might come up.
well,
The
yeah.
the 11% is budget.
Yeah, or 13.
When I get ready to do budget amendments for May, June, if you're feeling like, okay, this is a good time to do some, you don't have to do
We could
everything.
do it in a
Yeah.
couple bites.
Yeah. And we usually do 2 at this time of the year, one in May, June, and the other one in September. And so if at that point the year's been good and we don't need to hit much of those reserves, then maybe that's the place to go.
Okay, will you remind us when it's time to do
Yeah,
that?
I will.
Yeah, because I think we
I
can
will
look at
let
it.
you know.
But just to ensure
Yeah.
against not having adequate funds, I will move that we do 13% this year instead of
Okay.
10.
Okay?
And that's it.
You've heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded that we budget 13% this year, and with the guidance that the next couple of years, we'll take care of the rest.
And this is to come out of budget money, not reserves.
That's right.
That's right.
We're addressing this right now in our pending budget, and we can make up some of it later.
Right. So really what we're saying is we're going to take that experience rating from 70% and move it to 83%.
Yeah.
And now you'll have 2 more 10% moves and then you'll be at the 103.
Well, and part of that
The
is,
reserves and
Ann just
higher
said
than
we're
80.
really at only
Okay.
about 55%,
Not
because if we should have 2 million, and we're only going to have 1.1, that's where I think we need to do our moving the money later.
Right.
You know,
When you
'cause-
look at the excess reserves and do
Yeah,
it
because,
money
you know,
move.
the 103% somebody else is calculating. We're looking at our own self.
Right.
So
You've heard the motion and the second. Is there any additional discussion or questions?
How much
Yes.
money would that 13% encompass?
Well, I showed you here what a 10% move would be. And that's about, it would hit citywide about 75,000. Or the general fund or the tax supported funds, about 43,000, okay? So if you're adding more, you just kind of bump it up by that, right?
So around 85.
Yeah, I would say
So-
that.
Pretty close.
Yeah, that'd be close.
How much?
85,000,
82.
Yeah,
somewhere in there.
yeah.
You've heard the motion.
How
Question?
much would you? It was me, but I had some more clarification that I'd like to get. How much would you propose then to,
I think we take it
Raise
out of
it.
reserves, period, not put it in the budget.
but how much?
I don't know.
13%,
We wait till we get to
10%?
that budget amendment time and decide then.
Yeah. I think we can put that part off.
Okay.
Please call the roll, Ruth.
Sure. Johnston,
Yes.
Adamson,
Yes.
Bray,
Yes.
Cheatham.
No,
I can't make a motion, so Ray really made the motion.
Oh, I'm sorry, you did? I'm sorry.
We're still voting.
Let me take it back. Nope, I want to get it right. Okay. Cheatham, you were no.
yes.
Lurick,
No.
Johnston,
Yes.
Manon,
Yes.
So we need to call him Harry.
Is that a tie?
No,
I'd rather do that.
it's 42.
Oh,
42 is what I thought.
Because your vote counts.
yeah, my vote counts. I was called on. Okay. Thank you. The motion passes.
Okay. I've got it noted and we will build it into the
Okay.
budget.
Yeah, that'll be good. Okay, next.
Have anything else you want
No,
us to
that's
go?
it.
I think we've got enough time, we can go ahead. We just have to be out here shortly after 5.
We will be fast.
Employee benefits, please.
So nice to see you, Lizzie.
Do you know where your
So nice to see you, Lizzie.
They're on the jump drive.
Oh, okay. I'll get out the road then.
So we are going to team this presentation because Heather was going to give it. So we've split it up and we apologize if it's not as smooth as it might have been.
Lynette Sampson, Compensation Specialist.
Ann Butler, Safety and Wellness Coordinator.
Laura Judkins, Benefits Coordinator.
I'm not beginning on yours, so.
All right, so our agenda is, we're going to be talking about employee benefits, VSP, dental, and EAP. We're also going to be talking about qualified educational assistance reimbursement program, background checks, and employee benefits, the boot allowance. Okay, so this busy chart, we recently received our renewal from VSP, who is our vision insurance plan, and they came back with some options for us to choose from. The first column is what we currently have for vision. The second column is the renewal, and so they're saying if you want the very same plan, then it's going to cost you less. So that was some good news. We're looking at 2% change.
Is that because we probably haven't been taking advantage of this, or just not?
Can't see.
Well, it's a number of things, really. It's that it's very well could be that, and the costs are less for the people who are using it. So the experience rate is better than we expected. The third column is a option that would allow the allowance to go up to 150 for frames, plus a 20% amount above the allowance. In addition to that, too, it would also mean a slight increase in our premiums. And then the fourth column is a option for 150 allowance for frames. The allowance for contact lenses would be 130, and then for anti-reflective coating would be covered in full. But with this particular one, our premiums would go up slightly. So on this next slide, this is going to show you what how the premiums would be affected. So for option 1, this is the same coverage and that we have. You can see that for a family, for example, the monthly cost would be $3.62 less per month. The second option, this is the one where the increased frame allowance goes from $105 to $150. And this would also decrease our premiums. So for using the family example, it would cost $1.54 less for that. And then on the third option, it would increase the frame allowance as well as have an anti-reflective coating covered in full. Looking at the family coverage, that would increase our cost $1.24. So what we are suggesting for you is to go with option 2. That increases our frame allowance and it also decreases our premiums slightly. So that's our recommendation.
What's the pleasure of the council?
I know we've worked really hard to get premiums down, so I would definitely not be in favor of increasing them, but I guess I don't really see the great benefit in going to option 2 versus staying at option 1 as we've had.
Or they go to 3.
I was thinking
It's a huge savings. for
3.
people who wear glasses.
It is.
Yeah.
Massive.
Yeah.
That's hundreds of dollars, and you're paying
A year.
$4 a year more to save hundreds.
I wanted to show you this slide too. This is a frame analysis. And so this shows that in the last year, 128 people have bought frames. And of course, the biggest threshold is between $100 and $200 that they pay for those frames. So this kind of gives you an idea of how many people are actually using it. There's a lot of people who don't use vision, then they just don't take that option. They don't pay for it then. So the ones that do need the good coverage. So the reason we chose option 2 is that it gives better coverage for frames, but it also it does both. It decreases the premium and it increases frame allowance. So
I would go with the recommendation on the 2.
I'd make a motion to go with number 3.
I can second that.
You've heard
Everybody
the-
in my family wears glasses. I
You're gonna have to go get the one.
You've heard the motion and the second to go with option number 3. Additional discussion or comments?
Have the people who have been on vision reached out and said, I'm dying to have anti-reflective coating coverage?
no,
Have you heard from anyone?
I always get it.
Do you?
Yeah,
There's a big difference in
and it
glasses.
is
costs
it
a
nice?
lot.
I mean, I don't use it.
Good.
But it's an important feature, having it in glasses.
It is.
I would have it in mine.
Okay.
Are you
But
ready
it,
for?
it does increase the premium, so just be aware of that.
Are you ready for the question? All those in favor of the motion to do option 3 indicate by saying aye. Oh, no, I've got to call the roll. I forget what meeting I was conducting.
Rotary.
You wear many hats.
Yeah,
Makes my job easier.
please call the roll.
Gina,
Yes.
Manon,
Yes.
Adamson,
Sorry, no.
Gray,
No.
Laura,
Yes.
and I'll call and Johnston.
No.
We're in a predicament.
On your break the tie.
How many people wear glasses or coated?
So if it's tied, then it fails, is usually what the.
Okay, it failed. Additional discussion.
I think you're only increasing your premium on those people who take the program, which are the eyeglass wearers. And for them, you're saving them hundreds of dollars a year.
Yeah.
You're not costing the rest of the employees a dime.
I don't see that there's anything to lose.
Raise your hand if you'd like it.
The
Jeff?
increase,
Yeah.
Part of it.
Okay.
I wear glasses, but my daughter, who also wears glasses, she buys them online for $14.
Try to do
Wow.
some
Prescription and-
trifocals.
Wow.
And mine are always at least $500 or $600 a pair. So this
do you
is
think there will be
huge.
people who will say, why did you raise that? Because a couple people wanted it, or do you think overall everybody's gonna say, I wanted that?
I don't know.
We'll always hear a few complaints. We'll always hear a few. But from the masses, no. We won't hear from the masses.
Get out there and sell this program, guys.
$2.40.
You saw most people in here
Make
raise
them-
Chair
their.
would entertain another motion.
I make a motion that we go for option 3.
Second.
You've heard the motion and the second to go option 3. Additional discussion. Call the roll, please.
Okay, again. Laura,
Yes.
Gina,
Yes.
Adamson,
Go ahead.
You could do it.
Yes.
We're all going to change it.
Yes.
All right, so number 3. yeah.
Yes.
not quite yet.
Oh,
Johnston,
Yes.
Manon,
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. Option 3 is what it will be. Okay?
right.
Next item.
the next item. Right now, we are still, for dental, we're still looking at the renewal and we'll be presenting that at the next budget session, as well as the EAP. So you're off the hook for those two for right now. Okay, finally, on qualified educational assistance reimbursement program. So for fiscal year 2020, 31 people submitted requests for education next fiscal year, and that amount we're looking at is $113,000. Last year, the budget amount was $72,000, so there's a substantial increase, $41,000 from the 2 fiscal years.
Was all of that 72,000 used?
I don't know yet because the year isn't over. It all depends if people finish their classes and.
What's the trend? Is
Get
it
passing
usually all
grades.
used?
Yeah, I think for the most part, people have, there have been a couple who have not used the reimbursement, but most have.
I think this is such a benefit for our employees that it's one of those things that we should encourage.
We set it up, we need to follow through.
Yep.
I'd move that we do so.
Second.
You've heard a motion and the second. Exactly what are we going to do? Just follow
The
that
Fiscal year
recommendation.
2020 amount requested budget, whatever we need to do for the Qualified Education Assistant Reimbursement Program.
Okay.
As presented.
Yes.
You've heard the motion and the second. Any discussion? Roll call, please, Ruth.
Cheatham,
Yes.
Laura,
Yes.
Adamson,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Johnston.
Yes.
Manon.
Yes.
Motion carries.
All right, on to background checks. So for FY19, HR was given $10,000 in our budget to pay for background checks. That program was designed and implemented, and it started on 12/12 was our first one. So we don't have a full year of data. I have a couple of months, and up until Monday, I had 24 of these. And then Monday hit, and now I've got a lot more. Seasonal hires have started. HR is recommending we maintain the $10,000 for one more year in the HR budget. For FY 2021, we will be asking to move that money into each department's budget instead of housing it in HR. These are just the early numbers of where we're at. And I don't expect these trends to be the same, though. Just keep that in mind as you go forward for 2021. Water had a lot of retirements last year. So as they hire younger staff, they'll have less retirements and hopefully less hires to replace the retirement. So this will always be kind of a fluid number, but we will know how many part-time and seasonal people we hire for sure at the end of the season.
What's the cost per background check?
For volunteers, it is $11.95 each. For employees, it's $16.95.
Can I-
Certainly worth it. Yes, please.
Remind me, do we do this? So say you hire somebody this season and they, they leave for the winter season and come back the next. Do we redo the checks on them?
If there's a 6-month break.
There's a 6-month, okay.
I think this is an easy one. Someone make the motion.
I move that, oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Please, go ahead,
I
Vina.
was going to say, I move that we approve the recommendation to include the $10,000 in the HR's budget for FY 2020.
You've heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Call the roll, please, Ruth.
Can I ask
Yes.
a question real quick?
Sure.
I was just curious about, so we're projecting 10,000, but we have spent just a little over 1,000 in a quarter?
But we're just
But-
getting started with it.
Yeah.
That's the big
Okay.
thing. There will be additional
So
expenditure.
you think it'll pick up and get close to the 10?
I don't know. This will be our first year. We estimated that Parks had about 400 volunteers. They've had 53 or 51 volunteers come in so far, so there may be a reduction in the number of volunteers, maybe tied to backgrounds, maybe not. And then we also projected a high number of employees because we'd anticipated about 300 part-time seasonal hires. I don't know, based on the number of approved positions that the mayor approved, if we're going to get anywhere near that number. So it could be high, but we're not sure.
Okay.
Call the roll, please, Ruth.
Yes, sir. Manon,
Yes.
Gray,
Yes.
Adamson,
Yes.
Cheatham,
Yes.
Lurick,
Yes.
Johnston.
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Let's go to, I guess we can go to standardized boot allowance.
So Heather's been researching this. Currently, we don't have any standardized boot allowance. Each department does things a little bit differently, and we're trying to find a way to make sure that we do this equitably across the departments. So, for example, like in the police department right now, we tax that. We should be taxing it across all the departments, but we're not. So we have done this based off of ANSI standards or OSHA standards. In essence, that's our benchmark. This would not include any seasonal or interns. And we're trying to talk to you today about just kind of how, if you would like to standardize it, and if so, we have some recommendations.
Let's hear your recommendations.
Okay, so this just is a brief summary of kind of what the departments are currently doing. We split the types of shoes into 3 levels. One is a safety toe, not necessarily a steel toe, but a safety toe. That shoe is the most expensive. It's about $150. A high ankle boot is $100, and then we have a limited use is $50. Those are people that aren't out every day. For example, like an engineer, he goes out on site occasionally. Those would be $50. So we have given in the following spreadsheets kind of what their current practice is in the department, what we would recommend they be given, and we've also done that kind of by level of position. So of course all of our equipment operators have a higher level of shoe than maybe what our supervisors do that aren't in the field all the time. So it's up to you what you'd like to do. It does increase for some departments that are currently doing nothing. Some are case by case, and others do this consistently. But we would like a response to know if we're just paying this through payroll to all employees, or if they want to go do that on their P card, because we have departments doing this differently across the board.
Anyone have any comments or questions or feelings?
So you're setting amounts for standardized amounts.
Yes, based on position type.
Are we also establishing new categories that we haven't had before?
Right now, I think, as you can see, each department was a little bit different. So for example, in transit, it was $200 for 4 people. 150 has kind of been the standard. Others went down and they bought that with their P card, so I couldn't tell you if that was a $175 shoe or a $100 shoe. So that's what we'd kind of like some guidance on, is just to tell us how you'd like to standardize this, or if you don't want to standardize this.
Well, I guess my question was like on airport. It says no boot allowance, but now we've got boot allowance.
Yes.
Are we doing something we haven't done?
Nope, those are maintenance positions. There was some supervisors haven't required anything. So we have tried to address the types of work that they do and what would be an appropriate footwear for those. We have seen, for example, work comp claims related to our footwear. But we also have to provide the benefit if we're going to ask supervisors to make sure they wear those shoes.
So what's the total amount it would increase then potentially?
It's each department is different. So for example, in the airport, theirs goes up $750. Currently, there's no boot allowance. But in a department such as water, they already pay, so you're not going to see much of an impact there.
Your overall is $21,000?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. But each department, some departments already have budget for this.
So you said the total was $21,250.
And by standardizing it, then they will pay taxes on it.
They would. It would be a fringe benefit. I know Heather put in here that it would be added to each job description. We were actually talking about adding it to the handbook more of as a summary. These positions have this so that we can follow that. It might be a little cleaner that way.
Does this 21,250 total include those positions that are currently requiring the boot, or is this an addition?
I believe so. I think it includes everybody.
So that's not the increase
Correct.
to the city?
Correct.
Do we have any idea what the increased cost would be?
I haven't totaled it. It depends on whether they require it or not.
Okay.
Looks to me like we will save ourselves in possible claims by standardizing this. Roger?
I move that we adopt a standardized boot allowance.
You've heard the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Questions or discussion? Ruth, please call the roll.
Vincent. Gray.
Yes.
Cheatham.
Yes.
Adamson.
Yes.
Lorick.
Yes.
Johnston.
Yes.
Manon.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. Are there other items that you need to bring up? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your participation today. We stand adjourned after a very long day.